W News Special Edition.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for a special edition of KGW News at 5. I'm Brittany Folkers. Now, massive wildfires continue to burn across Oregon, but the weather conditions are changing in Oregon's favor. And we want to start with some good news here. Several Portland suburbs are no longer under any evacuation levels. As you can see on this map right here, Clackamas County dropped level 1 warnings for West Linn, Milwaukee, Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, Tualatin, Happy Valley, Clackamas, and Gladstone, as well as for some areas near Boring and Damascus. Now, this is a big relief for so many people in those cities. Oregon City and Canby do remain under a level 1, down from level 2 last night. It is important to note here that the level 3 boundaries in Clackamas County remain unchanged. And with that, let's start our coverage with KGW's Maggie Vespa. She's live for us in Colton, Oregon, which is in that level 3 territory. Maggie, you were in a press conference earlier with firefighters and authorities in the county. Lots of updates coming out of that.
Yeah, Brittany, 100%. We streamed that entire press conference on our Facebook page, on Twitter, on our website. It's about a half hour long, and it's packed with information if people want to go watch it for themselves. I'll run through a couple of the big updates here. The first one that we want to highlight was containment levels. A lot of people on social media were really glad to hear about this. So I'll show you the list, some of the smaller fires here in the area. In particular, the Wilhoit fire and the Unger fire are both 100% contained. The Dowdy fire and Graves Road, which is a small one, it's just 45 acres. Those are both 20% contained. Again, that's new as of today. People commenting, like I said, a lot about that. Relieved to hear those updates. Of course, the big concern here is still the Riverside fire. It's at more than 133,000 acres, all in Clackamas County, and it's 0% contained. That said, firefighters are making progress. They moved from defensive mode to offensive overnight Friday into Saturday, and gaining control like that allowed them to downgrade some of those lower level evacuation zones. That said, level 3 unchanged. Level 3, of course, means leave now. And I asked today why those boundaries haven't moved. Firefighters said that boils down not so much to fire danger, but to infrastructure damage.
So we have to make sure the roadways are cleared, there are weakened trees, there's electrical wires down, there might be damaged structures out there, and things that can be hazardous to the general public. You know, we're trained, we have professionals out there on the ground. I just got out of a meeting with some of the PGE folks talking about their infrastructure and stuff like that, and it would just be counterintuitive to send people back into their homes when there could be live electrical lines and things like that.
So firefighters are working on putting that risk in perspective, too. In fact, we were told today Clackamas Fire just began damage assessment in burned areas. And if you've been through areas impacted, you know that these fires can be really fickle, really hit or miss. We found this burned patch of land moments ago along Highway 213. But get this, that land is technically in the level 2 zone. In fact, Highway 213 is the dividing line in some parts between level 3 and level 2. A neighbor told us firefighters put that fire out quickly so it didn't spread, and he was obviously really grateful for that. Something else that was talked about today is the sort of suspicion and panic surrounding possible looters. The sheriff here in Clackamas County said over the last 2 days, deputies have responded to more than 330 calls. That's more than 4 times their norm. And they said the vast majority of those were around people who were afraid they were seeing looters on their property or on their neighbor's property. The sheriff said the vast majority of those calls turned out to be unfounded. No one was trying to loot anything. And he told a story about someone who was driving around with gas in the back of their truck, and deputies got a call about them. They finally caught up to the guy, and it turned out he was delivering gas to people he knew who needed that to run their generators. So, Brittany, the sheriff basically told us that he understands, as we all do, we all know this, that people are scared, there's a lot of panic out there, but he really implored people not to get sucked in by that and to kind of get caught up in conspiracy theories online. And he also reminded people deputies are patrolling these areas heavily to make sure they remain safe while people are evacuated. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Maggie, thank you so much. Great update. Well, we also have some good news on the Chehalem Mountain Bald Peak fire that's burning north of Newburgh in Washington County. All level 3 evacuation levels have been lifted. That means it is safe for people to return home. But that yellow area that you see on the map right there, that is still under a level 2 evacuation. So if you do go back home, you should still be prepared to leave again if conditions change. The fire is about 75% contained right now.
The air we're breathing right now is equivalent to smoking 20 packs of cigarettes. It is profound and consequential.
Hazardous air conditions stretch far beyond the flames all across the West Coast. California's governor there making a grim comparison when it comes to the impact it's having on our lung health. The smoke here in Oregon ranges from mostly from dangerous to hazardous. And let's take a look at some of the photos that you've been sending in. These are so helpful for us telling the story, especially about the air quality. This one right here, sun trying hard to break through the smoke up on Skyline. This other one taken from my front yard in Salem, and you can just see, I mean, right past that tire swing, the visibility just stops. How about this one? Springfield, Oregon, still like a smoke-covered mountain with no sunshine. And I have to say, I feel that same way. It feels like the night never ends, the day never starts because the sun is so blocked out from that smoke. And this one from Elizabeth in Vancouver, Washington, another backyard photo that we're seeing. Now, this air is more than eerie, which is really what we're seeing in so many of these photos. It's actually an extreme health concern. Area hospitals and clinics are seeing more and more people coming in with breathing issues and calling with questions. Kaiser Permanente Northwest pulmonologist Dr. Joshua Filner says we've seen air quality issues in the past with wildfire events, but this year it's off the scale. He says once the air gets this bad, it's not just an issue for people with underlying health conditions. People who are otherwise healthy are also at risk.
You know, here where we're in the 400 and 500 ranges, that's more where you again expect to see some normal people having some of those same problems, that chest tightness, dizziness, just feeling, fatigued, all those sorts of symptoms.
Dr. Filner says if you are experiencing any of those symptoms, start with a virtual appointment. However, if you can't catch your breath, having real trouble breathing, you need to seek emergency help. And for parents out there, you need to be extra mindful of your kids. Their lungs are still developing and are more susceptible to smoke, especially the really younger kids. Now, if they don't want to eat and are unusually sleepy or unresponsive, that's when it's time to get emergency help. And for those living on the street, 24-hour smoke shelters are still open at both the Convention Center and the Charles Jordan Community Center. Anyone who needs shelter should call 211 to see where space is available and arrange transportation. The Multnomah County Joint Office of Homeless Services is handing out thousands of KN95 masks throughout the county. They're also asking for donations, really needed right now. Those are things like blankets, tarps, sleeping bags, hygiene products, and other supplies. Well, crews on the Beachy Creek fire moved from evacuating people and protecting structures to trying to spread. Actually, we're going to switch gears right now and bring in Matt Zaffino because, Matt, we've been talking about these air quality issues. You can even just see in this live look behind me of Portland, it is dense out there. It's hard to be outside for even more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, it really is pretty nasty. So I'm going to go into this a little bit, the air quality index, and I'll show you what the current readings are, but also explain it. Oh, you okay? Explain it a little bit more, too, because what does it exactly mean? We all know the numbers. We all know the higher the number, the worse the air quality. But let me get into that for you just a bit as we look at what exactly that is. So here's that same shot. I just captured this graphic here a second ago about the air quality index. And basically, what the EPA and Oregon DOT and all the agencies do is they look at an average of 5 different pollutants. The 2 most important ones, especially right now, are particulate matter. That's the so-called PM 2.5. What that means is particulate matter, that's the PM. The 2.5 is microns. That is the diameter of the particle. So 2.5 microns or less is what they're measuring. They also measure ground level ozone. That's not a problem for us right now. And the reason we differentiate between ground level ozone and any other kind of ozone is that ground level ozone is a pollutant. That's Los Angeles has made that famous with its smog, and that forms when you have a lot of pollution like car exhaust mixing with very warm temperatures. You get ground level ozone, and that's a pollution. upper level ozone way up in the stratosphere. That's good. That helps protect us from the sun's rays, so that's a different thing. We don't want to deplete that. All right, so the other things they measure are carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide. Any of those 5 pollutants can make the air quality index spike. But in our case, it's all about the particulate matter, because when you're burning forests and everything else, you put a lot of particulate matter into the air. Now, what does PM 2.5 microns mean? It's 100 times thinner than a human hair. So we're talking about really small particles in terms of being able to see them, but you can certainly smell them, and your lungs absolutely react to them. And that's why it is such a problem around wildfire like this. So let's check the current air quality readings. That one green dot we have up in Vancouver, that's suspicious to me. I think what's happening is the levels are spiked so much that some of the sensors get tricked into thinking that, oh, it can't possibly be this bad, so you get a faulty reading. But you can see everywhere else in the Willamette Valley is in the hazardous category, and it's not just the Willamette Valley. It extends out through northeast Oregon, up through Spokane, the Idaho Panhandle, over into Montana, over towards Boise, and then, of course, south into California. It's no bueno there as well. Now, the other thing that's happening, too, and this is interesting only from a meteorological perspective, is that those little tiny particulates act as condensation nuclei for fog. So the smoke, if you will, is actually seeding the fog. When you get the moisture coming in with the marine air that moved in and seeped into the valleys a couple of days ago, well, you get the moisture, right? But now we've got all of these little condensation nuclei floating around with those little particles. So it's made a combination. What we have out there is a combination of normal fog, but also a lot of smoke, and the result is really bad visibility. It's only a quarter of a mile in McMinnville, Aurora, Salem, Hood River, Portland, Scappoose, Hillsborough, all about a half a mile. But it's really low humidity, and when it gets down below a half a mile, you need to slow down a bit for driving as well. So what's coming up? Well, you can see the smoke thins quite a bit, especially as we go into Tuesday morning. Some pretty good improvement at the coast and in the Cascades. The reason it's still thick along the I-5 corridor there, especially down around Eugene and Salem, is simply proximity to the source. The source, of course, being the fires. So they will continue to produce smoke. What we want to do is clear that smoke, of course, out of the area, and that's going to begin to happen in the upper levels. But I want to show you what that looks like in the lower levels right now, and for that we can look at the satellite imagery. Now, 2 things happening here. You can see those high clouds drifting on over. They're moving. There goes a brighter band. But look beneath that, and you can see there's just a gray footprint in the Willamette Valley. That's not moving. That's the smoke or the smoke fog mixture. We're getting some clouds coming over the top of it right now. That's an indication that we're picking up more wind flow aloft. That's a good thing. The upper level winds are really going to begin to, the upper level smoke is really going to begin to thin out as that weather system off the coast begins to roll on our way. So that's good. We're going to get circulation center down here moving closer to the coast. The problem with it is that it's been really fickle to forecast. It's not necessarily just going to bust on in. It's not riding a super strong jet stream. What these things tend to do is meander around off the coast. And if it stays far enough offshore, we get less wind, we get less ventilation, we get less clearing of the smoke. We want it to move close and move through. That'll eventually happen at the end of the week, but we will get some relief before the end of the week. Let me show you this forecast of the winds at about 5,000 feet over Portland, and they really spike upward tomorrow night, which is why we think things will really improve Monday night and Tuesday morning. Those winds slacken off a bit as we go into Wednesday, so we may see a return of some smoke at that time. But overall, things will begin to improve tomorrow. We'll have to contend with some smoke, I believe, on Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday, we should see some more improvement as that upper-level storm I've been telling you about and just described. I'll show you another image of that. As that begins to move inland, instead of just sending an impulse over us, the whole body of it is going to move inland Thursday and Friday. So 2 things with that. We'll get more rain. We will also get more wind aloft and get more scouring of this low-elevation smoke out of the valleys, which is, of course, what many of us are waiting for. So here's what that looks like on our modeling. And you can see that circle, that white circle off the coast, that's the center of the storm system, stays out there, sends a little bit of rain, impulse of rain over us tomorrow night and Tuesday, and then Wednesday it ends, the rain does, and then Thursday there's some more rain over us, And Friday we get more and some stronger winds, and that should really be the end of it. It may, and then Saturday there's still a few showers left over. It may be Sunday a week from today before we have a day where we have a totally blue sky. Now that's not all bad news, because we're going to get some clouds and we're going to get some rain as opposed to having smoke for another week. We won't have a week of smoke like we've had for the last 3 days, but it is going to be a gradual thinning. The rainfall forecast now, and this has been all over the map, it does increase it down in the Eugene area and in the Portland area compared to what it was showing us yesterday. If we can get a third of an inch of rain in Portland and nearly half an inch in Salem and more Eugene, that would really do a lot of good to help to squelch those fires. We'll have to wait and see exactly how that shapes up. But there is good news on the way. Again, we're going to see the smoke begin to thin. So outside right now, it is a cool 63 degrees with the low humidity that we have. I'm going to show you the headlines, then I'll show you the 7-day forecast for you. The headlines look like this. Here's what you can expect going forward. In the short term, we're going to see the smoke thin after tonight. It's still going to be fairly thick tonight, but late tonight, tomorrow morning, it should begin to thin during the day tomorrow. Maybe a glimpse of sun or at least some clouds above. The air quality will improve tomorrow, and we'll get some rain as we go into Monday night and Tuesday. I'm not looking for a lot of rain east of the Coast Range. The coast will do better with the rainfall, so those coastal fires should get a good soaking over the next few days here. But again, we've got a dense smoke advisory now till 11 o'clock. We have the thinning smoke tomorrow, still in the upper 60s, which is warmer than we've been today. And the temperatures are interesting because when you see those warmer temperatures, that means we're breaking the inversion. Right now, it's all about the inversion and breaking the inversion. What's an inversion? Normally in the atmosphere, it gets cooler as you go higher in elevation, right? Well, an inversion is the inverse of that. It means the cold air is down low and it gets warmer above. The problem with that, it's a very, very stable pattern because cold air is more dense. When it's down low, it doesn't want to move. It's very happy to live there until something mixes it out. So right now, it's all about breaking the smoky inversion that we have over us. And I think with those warmer temperatures, that's an indication that that will happen. We may still have some patchy smoke around on Wednesday, but on Thursday, especially later Thursday and Friday, we'll get some pretty good rain, and over the weekend we're back in the mid-70s. By then, we should be totally done with the smoke, but we will see improvement beginning tomorrow night and on Tuesday. I just can't promise. I don't want to overpromise the clearing because this has been a very trying and taxing situation for a lot of people. But I think we will see some improvement Monday night and Tuesday. Wednesday there'll be some smoke around, but I think we'll have warmer temperatures, get at least some sun before the rain sets in again on Thursday and Friday, and that is a good thing too. So, Brittany, there you go. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We just have a lot of tunnel left to go.
Yeah,
back to you.
Quite a ways to go. And it is a really good point to make, too, that as we see these conditions improving, people should still really be keeping an eye on air quality because you don't want to have that false sense of security and maybe put your lungs at risk.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the point you were making in your story there, too, is about how damaging this particulate matter can be. And, again, as I said, PM 2.5 particles, those are smaller, 100 times smaller than a human hair. So they're really tiny, but that's the problem. They go through, like a bandana is useless. That stuff's going to go right through the weave of a bandana or a cloth mask. You really need a good solid mask to keep it out, and even then you can get air coming in on the sides. The best idea is to just avoid it altogether, try to stay inside, especially for people with respiratory. I mean, I felt it just in the few minutes I've been outside taking out the trash or whatever. You can kind of feel it getting scratchy in there. And yeah, it's not pleasant, it's not healthy, and it can have long-term effects. So you really want to just take it easy. I know it's hard to have patience. We've all had to be patient for like the last 6 months with COVID. Now we have to be patient with this in the short term. This will end way before COVID does. That's the good news, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Matt. Well, hey, crews on the Beachy Creek fire moved from evacuating people and protecting structures to trying to stop the spread of the fire. So they're making progress, and that's thanks to that better weather Matt was talking about. This afternoon, the city of Scotts Mills was reduced from a level 3 to a level 2 evacuation. The fire has burned nearly 190,000 acres and is 0% contained as it continues to threaten homes and lives. So we got a look behind the fire perimeter today. Our Morgan Romero joins us live in Marion County. And Morgan, we've been reporting the last couple of days that the Beachy Creek fire was expected to merge with the Riverside fire in Clackamas County. Is that still the case?
So the Beachy Creek fire and the Riverside fire are still burning near each other about a mile away. I'm going to flip this camera around and show you where on this briefing map we're talking about. Right there, you can see just how close they're burning together. Good news is, though, Brittany, fire officials don't believe they're going to merge soon like they originally thought. As for that tour you mentioned, the sheriff's office and state fire marshal's office took a few journalists down Highway 22 past this barricade today, along the highway where the fire burned previously, to the town of Gates. And we know a lot of devastation seen in that town right now. Containment lines are being built, and the crew's mission is keep building containment and control lines around the perimeter on the west and northwest sides of the fire. Crews are working with landowners to build line further out around the southern end to stop the spread there. While they made progress, they don't expect to tie up all the containment lines until later this week. Conditions have improved on the fire since earlier in the week, as Matt just touched on. Earlier today, John Spencer on the fire operations team shared just how dangerous things were when those winds whipped up.
And we had a tree go down and drop a power line right onto our ICP chain link perimeter fence around our whole area and set everything on fire in 360 degrees around that incident command post. We had to engage that fire, and all of our folks from our team, and I'm talking planning section, logistics section, finance section, people who don't normally fight fire, were fighting fire that night. And we took us about an hour to get that fire under control. But in the meantime, numerous fires started all over the community of Gates and extending out along the Highway 22 corridor. Wind speeds of up to 50-mile-an-hour gusts were blowing those fires into raging fires, and they were connecting. We at that time pulled the trigger and had to get our resources out, and we evacuated the town of Gates with our whole command post and went to the town of Staten.
But here's the thing, flames spread so quickly they had to evacuate Staten, and Spencer said firefighters lost a lot of personal belongings, but man, that resiliency, they just kept pushing on. Today, crews are getting a scope of the damage in places that burned along Highway 22 and further north. They're also working to protect structures and clear trees down in the road. Firefighters are working with the Sheriff's Office, State Police, and ODOT on recovery efforts in Santiam County. Spencer says the generosity and support from people in these communities who've lended resources and equipment has been incredible. We should note the area is still too unsafe for the tens of thousands of evacuees who live in that area to return. As of today, almost 20,000 people remain under a level 2 evacuation order, which means get set, get your bags packed and ready to go at a moment's notice. Brittany.
And Morgan, you've been out covering these fires really all through last week as well. So what's your take as things are starting to change and we're starting to see some encouraging news?
Yeah, you know, I think hearing from the incident command team today and having him talk about how the weather has significantly helped, how this fire, I'll flip the camera around and show you how this fire has kind of moved west into the ag lands near Salem and up in this area. They've gotten all of this contained with containment lines here. Now that's different than the fire actually being contained, but containment and control lines. So they're making significant progress. They say about 50% is the goal today. 50% containment lines on that west and northwest flank there. So encouraging in that sense, but of course, like we said, you know, the fire is still burning. It is still almost 190,000 acres, but hopefully some good weather will come in and crews, now that they're actually able to be, as Maggie touched on the offense versus the defense, it definitely feels like progress.
And what we've heard, too, from a lot of those officials, they're saying, yeah, we're making progress. This is good news, but this isn't the time to kind of let our guard down. We still need to stay alert. We still need to be really in tune to what's happening. What have you heard on that?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad that you touched on that because I want to mention, you know, we talk about these evacuation levels changing, but that doesn't mean go back into areas that have burned. You know, we got a limited access today because we're media. We need to provide information. A very limited number of people were able to go. It's also the safest route for us to go on because we're accompanied by law enforcement and by fire officials. But anytime there are evacuation warnings in your area, whether it's level 1, 2, or 3, heed those warnings. Anytime you see barricades in the road, follow directions and do not go past those barricades. It could be extremely dangerous. We've touched on this over the last few days. It could be impossible for first responders to get to you if you don't heed those warnings and you do things that, you shouldn't necessarily be doing right now, just to go back to your house and get some personal belongings. Because with roads blocked and the fire kind of as it has been moving so erratically lately, you just really don't know, as Maggie touched on too. It's so fickle. You just don't know where these hot spots were popping up. And so for now, just continue to heed those warnings and stay safe. You could really be risking your life. You could be risking first responders' lives if you don't do those things. We have resources on our website, kgw.com, and we keep referring to these throughout the newscasts. If you need somewhere to go, if you need somewhere to put your livestock, you have resources out there, and there are individual folks that are helping people bring their livestock other places. I also, one last note, I do want to mention too, we know for a fact that Marion County Sheriff's Office is allowing some people to go back into their homes if they need to pick up medications that are urgent, they can't fill the prescriptions otherwise, or if they need to go try to wrangle some livestock and it's safe to do so and they just have to transport them. They're allowing them on a limited basis. If they prove, that they live in the area, or if they prove what they're doing, they can do that.
All right, Morgan, thanks so much for that information. Really appreciate it. Well, hey, a lot of people just don't know if their homes in the Santiam Canyon area are still standing. It's a really, really hard part of what's happening right now. And if you have a home in Detroit or Idana, there's now a phone line set up for deputies to check on the condition of your home. You can call that number right there on your screen, 503-798-6823. Anytime between 8 and 5, any day of the week. You can let them know your name, address, phone number, anyone who is missing from your home, and any animal at your home. A deputy will check on your property and give you a call back. They do not want you to go inside these areas yourself, like Morgan just mentioned, because it is still too dangerous. Well, Facebook says it is removing false claims from its site that the wildfires were started on purpose by certain groups. This has been a topic we've been talking about a lot during these wildfires. What you're seeing right now is a tweet from a Facebook exec. Law enforcement have repeatedly debunked rumors about groups like Antifa intentionally starting the fires. They've also told us 911 dispatchers are swamped answering questions about these rumors, wasting time when they could be helping people who need it. And we're learning some more about the state fire marshal's resignation during this wildfire crisis. Jim Walker told the Statesman Journal that he was put on leave after he went to search for one of his employees' family members who was missing in the Santiam Canyon area. Now, Walker told the newspaper that he cleared the search with the operations chief for the Beachy Creek fire, but he says the Oregon State Police Superintendent thought Walker overstepped his role and didn't have the authority to go on that search. He was put on leave Friday and resigned just yesterday, telling the Statesman Journal, quote, "I can't in good faith work in a system that's non-supportive to what I see as needing to be provided to our firefighters on the ground." Oregon State Police have only said Walker was put on leave for a personnel issue and won't comment further. Chief Deputy Mariana Ruiz Temple has now been promoted to fire marshal. Yesterday, Governor Kate Brown visited some of the people who are staying at the Oregon State Fairgrounds in Salem. It's one of 10 Red Cross evacuation centers set up across our state. The governor had a chance to talk with some of the people who were forced from their homes and some of the volunteers who are helping them out. She also had a chance to see the generous donations that have been pouring in, not just for the people there, but also their pets, with lots of donated dog and cat food. Well, in Lane County, fire crews say at least one person has died in a holiday farm fire that's burning east of Eugene, but at least 50 other people are missing. Search and rescue teams are now in the fire zone. That fire there has burned more than 161,000 acres. Crews say the calmer weather is helping. The thick smoke, though, that's still keeping the firefighting limited to the grounds. Thousands of buildings and homes are still threatened there. Well, we got to remember the people fighting these fires, protecting us, are people in our community. Upper Mackenzie Fire Chief Christiana Rainbow, she's been battling the holiday farm fire since it broke out. She's helping save lives and structures, all while her family's home and fire station have burned to the ground. Christelle Kumwe shows us how the community is stepping in to help.
So this is the fire that I was on
years ago.
Being a firefighter is a permanent part of Christiana Rainbow Blues.
Being able to help people and make a difference and know that you've been there in their worst moment and made some kind of positive impact.
The Upper Mackenzie fire chief got a call Monday night of a downed power line and brush fire. She immediately knew it wasn't good news considering the strong winds.
When I walked out my front door with my pager and my radio and to respond on the call, I opened my door and looked back at my husband and I said, this is going to be my worst nightmare.
She couldn't have been more right.
I did not know the extent. I just knew it was moving faster than anything I had seen in my 30 years experience.
Chief Rainbow and her team were the first firefighters to take on the raging Holiday Farm fire in Lane County.
By the time we were able to safely engage with the power lines, it had already grown beyond what we could take care of. And at that point, I very quickly called for all the help I could find.
Within an hour, she called for level 3 evacuations for the Mackenzie River area.
I have had a lot of wildfire experience, and I knew that we had to get people out or people were not going to make it out.
What she didn't know was that the fire would travel 20 miles right into her own backyard.
I found out from my friend and neighboring fire chief that my home was gone and that nothing was left. And quite frankly, I was a hot mess for quite a while.
The chief and a dozen of her district volunteer firefighters had their homes burned to the ground while they were out trying to save lives and property.
I couldn't disengage for a while. Just physically, we needed to keep fighting that fire. And all of my folks needed to keep fighting that fire because we had no other resources.
Her fire station in Blue River was lost to the flames, along with all the equipment. Chief Rainbow's courage, dedication, and sacrifices are not going unnoticed. The community is coming together to help out.
I just want to try to help her. She is a real salt of the earth, grassroots kind of person.
Ren Arrington started a GoFundMe page to help his friend and her family.
This is a horrible, catastrophic event, but the human spirit that's being shown right now with the kindness and the support is exactly what all of us needed.
A week of devastating loss for the chief, followed by inspiring support.
And I'm so proud of the fire service today. I'm so proud of what we've done. Everything is burning down in Oregon, and we still have people willing to come here and fight our fire.
Christelle Kumwe, KGW News.
I feel like we all need that hug that we just saw right there. Now, Chief Rainbow returned to fight that Holiday Farm fire shortly after our interview with her. We have more information on how you can help the chief, her family, and her crew at kgw.com. In southwest Washington, some evacuation levels have dropped near the Big Hollow fire burning in Skamania County in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. Now, the Yale Reservoir area is now under a level 1 evacuation, down from a level 2. Firefighters have made some progress there, but it has burned around 18,000 acres. Near the coast, the Echo Mountain fire has destroyed at least 100 homes, but firefighters are making progress there as well, with the fire now 20% contained. Some people in Lincoln City were able to return home this weekend as evacuation orders were downgraded, but others won't have a home to return to. As Katie Eastman reports, though, they're still counting their blessings.
How people respond to a moment in time,
can you say,
is telling.
I'm happy. Happy. Yeah, you're happy.
These cousins, aunts, daughters, sons, and sisters tell a joke.
You gotta be able to laugh at it.
Laugh even as they cram into a home in Tillamook that isn't their own.
And said, babe, there's a fire on Echo Mountain. And I'm like, what? I thought he was just joking with me.
The family left Otis early on Tuesday morning with a couple changes of clothes.
My sister, Katie, she was evacuated. No, I was evacuated.
All of them thought they'd be back at their homes in a few days.
Couldn't get really anything else out. We were mad scramble. This is my house. That's my Jeep in the driveway.
But almost all of their homes are gone.
I really numb, but my house would be standing right there. at the edge of the picture. It's just not there.
This family has lived in Lincoln County for 5 decades.
Our whole little nest egg community is gone. It just burned through it, and hundreds of people displaced.
When they need help, they turn to each other.
Hi, Willie.
But all of them have never needed so much at one time.
Mine's gone too.
And that has led to a bonding of sorts.
Well, I don't have to replace my kitchen floor.
It's telling
Or my roof.
how people react in times of need.
We don't have to put the trim in. Oh my gosh.
You know, it's those little things that it's like, at that moment, were huge. You know, and now it's like, well, okay. Now we don't have to do any of that. Now we can just, it's going to be a fresh start.
What this family lost told them how much they have.
That's just always us. We've always been family first.
This too shall pass. It might pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass.
In Tillamook, Katie Eastman,
I heard that from your brother who heard it from the radio.
KGW News.
We all need a little bit more of that optimism, that really great human spirit. Thanks, Katie, for that story. And we want to turn now back to Clackamas County. In the last 24 hours, evacuation orders in several cities and towns were downgraded from level 2 to level 1. Several Portland suburbs like Lake Oswego and West Lynn went from level 1 to normal. These are huge sighs of relief there. Now, we do need to note that the level 3 zone remains unchanged. Level 3, of course, means leave now. Maggie Vespa is live in Colton, Oregon, which is in that area. And Maggie, authorities in Clackamas County told us they don't want to change those boundaries just yet.
Yeah, Brittany, and the reason why boils down not so much to fire danger, although the Riverside fire especially, is still really active, but it boils down more to possible infrastructure damage, things like buildings that have been burned, obviously, and then also like downed power lines and that kind of thing. And so they just don't want to let people in just yet because it might be dangerous in some areas. To that end, they said Clackamas Fire just today is starting to kind of go around and tally up the damage to get a better idea of which areas might be safe and which ones wouldn't be. That update came out of a press conference earlier this afternoon. Another big update that came down, and people were really happy to see these numbers on social media: containment percentages on the smaller fires burning here. In particular, the Wilhoit fire and the Unger fire, both 100% contained. The Dowdy fire and Graves Road, which is a small one, it's about 45 acres, those are both 20% contained. Again, people commenting a ton on social media, so relieved to hear those numbers, and we completely get it. Of course, the big concern, as I said, is still the Riverside fire. It right now is at 133,000 acres roughly, and it is 0% contained. That said, firefighters are making progress. They moved from defensive mode to offensive overnight Friday into Saturday. And with that in mind, though, the level 3 zone, as Brittany said, remains unchanged. So, of course, some people have been staying behind regardless in the level 3 zone, and the sheriff knows that better than anyone. He said 911 calls have quadrupled, more than 300 in the last 2 days. Mostly they're people who are guarding their property, reporting suspected looters, and he says the vast majority of those calls turn out to be unfounded, aka looting is not a problem. And he urged people not to buy into panic and conspiracy theories.
We have a group of different individuals that are actually trying to protect property. They're actually have been armed and stopping individuals within the community out there. First thing I'd ask them to do is please stop that. We have reached out to a number of them. If they see somebody suspicious, call us, let us handle it. It's illegal to stop somebody at gunpoint, and many of the people that we have seen going into these areas are actually going in to get maybe another load of their personal belongings.
And that's not the first time that we've heard about that. We've seen posts about it on social media. We know a lot of our viewers have too. And actually, the Multnomah County Sheriff also had to put out a statement and tweeted about this, saying sort of the same thing, that he's seen sort of these armed citizen roadblocks, and he said that's really dangerous. And again, it's illegal. And Brittany, today, the Clackamas County Sheriff said, and we'd gotten this question from a lot of people, he said they had told those people to stop, but he noted they haven't charged anyone or arrested anyone for doing that, even though it is illegal. He said if it continues, they definitely will start charging people. Brittany, I'll send it back to you.
Maggie, that really was a jam-packed press conference today. A ton of information, a lot of updates. And one that the county really wanted to get out on social media was for people to stop using water because firefighters need it.
Yeah, 100%. And we asked about that. I asked about that because it sounds like an ominous update, right? It makes it sound like the firefighters are running out of water. So I asked Clackamas County sort of emergency officials, and they said they want to be clear. It's a preemptive precaution. They're not running out of water, but so many people are sort of watering their lawns and watering their homes to try and keep them safe during these fires that firefighters have had issues with sporadic water pressure at times when they need a high water pressure to fight these fires. So again, they're not running low. This is preemptive. Obviously, if enough people do it, that could be a possibility. But right now they are having issues with that pressure and they want to stop that from happening. So we're trying to spread that message on social media for them. People stop, even though it's tempting, we get it. Stop watering your lawn, stop watering your homes. The firefighters need it. I'll send it back to you again.
Makes sense. All right, Maggie Vespa, thank you. Well, as firefighters battle the flames, area healthcare providers, they're seeing an increase in patients with breathing issues. The air quality is bad. I mean, it's really bad, like the worst in the world, actually. And it ranges from dangerous to hazardous, and it's been off the charts in sub-mid-valley areas. Wildfire smoke can irritate your lungs, cause inflammation, affect your immune system, and make you more prone to lung infections, including the virus that causes COVID-19. So what can you do to protect yourself? Well, stay indoors with the house sealed up. Keep your windows and doors closed. Put damp towels under the doors and in other areas where the outside air might leak in. If you have an air conditioner, make sure it's on the recirculate setting. That way you're moving air already inside the home instead of pulling outside air into the room. Now, air purifiers are a really great option as well, but we know not everyone can afford or has access to one. Kaiser Permanente Northwest pulmonologist Dr. Joshua Filner says there are some other things that you can do.
Don't use aerosols. Don't cook foods that generate a lot of smoke in the house. Your indoor gas stove you may forget about, as that's a cause of indoor air pollution, to not run that. Even if it starts to get chilly tonight, don't run gas furnaces, don't run wood fireplaces, natural gas fireplaces. All those things contribute to worse air quality in the home that we don't always think about that in our day-to-day use, but right now that can make a big difference in terms of how breathable your space is.
If you have central HVAC, you can also install a high-efficiency filter. That's a MERV 13 or higher. Run that system's fan as often as possible to get the most out of the filter. If that's not an option, there are ways that you can make an air purifier using a filter and a box fan inside your home. We want to note, though, you want to use that inside your home. Don't put it up in a window because you want to keep that outside air outside. Also important to note, this is a Band-Aid, not a really foolproof solution to the air quality in your home, but it is something that should help. And we have a link on how you can make your own box fan air purifier right now at kgw.com. And let's bring Matt Sofino back in now, because that air quality is still a big concern. And even as we see some conditions improving, this is going to be something we need to be on the ball for and be paying attention to. Yeah, and just be patient with, because it's going to take some time for our air quality to improve. I have seen some forecasts of the air quality index getting much better tomorrow. We'll see if it gets that good that fast. It should improve a little bit tonight, tomorrow, and then more tomorrow night and into Tuesday. But I want to talk more about that air quality index, and I'll show you the current readings again. And I've got an update for Vancouver, which had been showing a green dot. I showed that a little while ago. I dug into that. The reason for that was, for whatever reason, it was showing us the ozone pollution levels. Now, the ground level ozone was fine, which is why we got a green dot. Now they have switched on over to particulate matter, specifically the really small ones below 2.5 microns in diameter, which is really, really small. And it is hazardous air everywhere. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means. First, I want to zoom out a little bit. And you can see it's not just the Willamette Valley or the Portland area. It's Central Oregon, Eastern Oregon, almost all of Washington, Idaho. Boise's not great, and it's bad even over into Montana. So there's a lot of bad air around the greater Northwest. It is not just a Portland problem or a Willamette Valley problem by any stretch of the imagination. So, again, the air quality index explained. We'll go through this. We did this a little while ago. We'll do it again and add to it.
What it is it's a 24-hour average of whatever the pollutant is, and they measure 5 different pollutants. I've talked about 2 of them already. The particulate matter, which is the one we're really concerned with. That's basically what the wood smoke and the wildfire smoke is creating. Ground level ozone is another one. Those are the main 2 that you see the air quality index spike from. But there are 3 others: carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, or nitrogen dioxide. Those can all spike the air quality index as well. Now, the particulate matter 2.5 that we're concerned with, it's very small. It's 100 times thinner than a humid hair, which is why cloth masks don't do anything. A bandana is not going to protect you from this very, very fine particulate matter that is really unhealthy to breathe. How do they come up with it, you may be wondering? Well, I don't do this very often, but here's the equation. I'm showing you the equation. For all you math geeks out there, there you go. The AQI is equal to the AQI high minus the AQI low divided by the concentration high minus the concentration low, blah, blah, blah. It's a bunch of math, right? Here's what it really means to you. If the air quality index is over 301, which is what it is and has been, it's hazardous, and then it gets better as the number goes down. It's been standardized for the United States, the index, that's why it's called an index, not just a value, so that it's more easy to understand and so that it is standardized around the world and around the country so that we can compare apples to apples with other locations, which we'll do a little bit later on. So that's the air quality index explained for you. I want to show you this video too. This was shot yesterday, and there's sound with this. The smoke was so thick up at St. Helens along the Columbia River that it set off the foghorn. Take a listen to this. Here we go. How about that? The foghorn going off. All right, well, trust me, the foghorn went off because of the smoke up in St. Helens. All right, there's a live look outside in Portland right now. It's 63. Humidity is quite high. Of course, it's 72%. And this is interesting as well. I mentioned this earlier. The smoke is actually engendering more fog because that PM 2.5 I've been talking about, the air quality index, really fine particulate matter, just so happens that stuff acts really well as what we call condensation nuclei. So it basically acts as a fine particle around which fog can form. So we actually are getting fog because we have smoke. It's really quite the mess, isn't it? It's just nasty out there, and the visibility is suffering consequently. It's both fog and smoke. A quarter of a mile, McMinnville, Portland, Aurora, Salem. It's just nasty out there. We usually don't see a day like this unless it's midwinter and there's absolutely no wind. And for Portland, we usually at least get some wind out of the east, out of the gorge, to help clear the fog, while other the big valleys in the west will stay socked in. But when it's like this, no wind, and we've got all this smoke, we are fogged in. So here's FUTURECAST, and it shows some pretty good improvement tomorrow and tomorrow night. That is encouraging, especially over the coast. The reason we still have that bullseye down around Eugene and to the east is because that's where the fires are. They are still producing smoke, but increasingly that's going to get blown away to the north and northeast, and we should see some improvement certainly on Tuesday. Wednesday we might see it come back a little bit, but I don't think it'll be as bad as the last 3 days. And then Thursday we're going to see it really get blown out as that storm system off the coast finally gets on its horse and moves in. This is right here. That is the center of a circulation center. We want to see that guy zip right over us, and it will Thursday and Friday. And that's when I expect to get a little bit more large-scale, widespread clearing of said smoke. So that'll be good to see. And we had some high clouds move over. You wouldn't know because of the fog and smoke we're living with. But you can see underneath it, that fog footprint just doesn't really move. And this fog, or sorry, the smoke and the fog, the smoke anyway, very widespread throughout the western United States, now the northwestern U.S. We'll wait for that system offshore to move onshore. And one thing that will help will be the upper level winds. Now, these are the winds that are about 5,000 feet. Forecast over the next few days. They really go up tomorrow night as we get this first system coming in, and that's going to help to ventilate the smoke out. So that's why we expect the air quality to be improving as we go through the day tomorrow and tomorrow night into Tuesday. So here's what's next. More smoke, more fog tonight. We don't see a lot of change tonight, but we'll see it thin, the smoke tomorrow. Air quality will improve, and we even get some rain on Monday night. The question is, of course, how much rain will we actually get? And the answer has been quite elusive because our computer models are having a hard time figuring this out. Here's one model, the European model, showing us now getting about 1/3 of an inch in Portland, and most of it coming Friday into Saturday, with not much before that. Now, another model, one of our American models, has a different result and different answer. and it's going to show us rain values that are a little bit different than what I just showed you. I'm loading this up right now so you'll be able to see it. And we don't really pick up much as we go into Monday. There's on Tuesday, we begin to get a little bit, but not much. The coast, however, does quite well with the Monday-Tuesday system, and I think that's a reasonable expectation. But for the rest of us in the valleys, I think it's going to be later in the weekend before we actually get any appreciable rainfall. So it is a little bit of a disappointment to not see a lot of rain coming in Monday night and Tuesday, but we will see the smoke begin to thin and conditions begin to improve. In fact, the dense smoke advisory only runs until 11 o'clock, so it may begin to thin after that. We'll get thinning smoke tomorrow, and we'll warm up a little bit more too, up to 67. Then in the 70s on Tuesday, Wednesday, and right on through the weekend, with our better chance of rain coming Thursday night and into Friday and even into Saturday. And I think by then, the smoke will finally be gone. So it's tough. The smoke, once it gets entrenched, it's really hard to remove. I talked about this earlier, how this is an inversion problem, or really the problem is breaking the inversion, and that means the smoke is now settled into the valleys. It's very entrenched. It's kind of like putting molasses in the bottom of a bowl, and it's hard to get that out. You either need something to mechanically scrape it out, or you need a big change in the upper level temperatures to help to scour that out. And we're going to work on the wind getting in here and maybe a little bit of rain to help do that for us. So hopefully we'll clear the molasses out in the next few days, at least a little bit, Brittany.
Yeah, definitely could use a little bit molasses cleaning. But, you know, you mentioned the rain, and we have gotten quite a few questions, actually, about what happens if we get a lot of rain in these burn areas. Are we at all worried, or what do we know about the potential for any landslides, mudslides, things like that?
Yeah, that'll be a concern through the rest of the winter. So even when these fires go out, their legacy will continue along that line. And we've seen this happen around the West, especially in the Southwest where the landscape is more barren. But it can happen here, too, and it has happened here in the past, where if we get one of our big, November rainstorms, let's say, or any month, really, and you end up getting a lot of heavy rain over a short amount of time over a burned area, you just have barren ground, and the potential for mudslides or debris flows is very real. So that'll be a concern more so as we go into winter. These first couple of systems this week, certainly tomorrow night and Tuesday, there won't be enough rain to do that. And then the system coming in even Thursday and Friday, probably not enough rain to do that either. And again, that's a tomorrow problem. I mean, in the long term, that's a problem we can worry about down the road. Right now, I think the firefighters would be happy to see quite a bit of rain to help put those fires out, and we worry about the landslides and the mud flows later. But that is a concern. Another question I've seen too, Brittany, on social media is, hey, will this lead to, is there an acidification problem if we get a lot of rain working on the ash and then that's flowing downstream? Rain is a little bit acidic anyway, so we would expect that. And can it corrode, metal objects, your metal roof or whatever? I don't think that's too likely. I don't think the concentrations would be high enough for long enough to cause a big short-term problem like that. But it is a good question.
All right, Matt, thanks so much for that update. Well, hey, a lot of these fires are in rural areas where people have had to evacuate not just themselves, but their horses, livestock, and other animals. So let's go to Katie Eastman live in Corvallis at the Benton County Fairgrounds, where some of those animals rescued are being housed.
Yeah, and they've got more than 100 animals here right now. They've got bunnies, pigs, miniature horses, and they've got these baby goats. They're just being fed right now. They are incredibly cute. These guys are being taken care of really well. They've even got veterinarians coming in to check on them. And I want to introduce you, while Ann switches the audio over to another microphone, to a woman that's really been helping out here. This is Katie Schrock, and not only have you been out helping out here, but you have been helping rescue animals across the state with the Facebook page Cowgirl 911. What is that, and how does it work?
Well, Cowgirl 911 was just started to create an outlet for those who needed help during this crisis to get evacuated. Livestock are a little bit more tricky. If you're a family, you usually have a car you can get out with, but when you have livestock, sometimes you can't fit them all into a trailer. Maybe your trailer is out of service at an inopportune time. So our community is huge and ready to help. The group itself has over 16,800 members, and you can either post in the group with full details of what you need, with your address, where you're located, a phone number to contact, and what animal and species you have. Like you said, we have rabbits, poultry, ducks, geese, cattle, horses, goats, pigs, everything, you name it. And with that group, what we have is a dispatch ticketing system. You can either fill out a form saying that that you have a resource for them to stay, you have the capabilities to haul and what you can haul, where you're located, and then we also include the most important one, which is the dispatch ticket, which is someone who needs help. And we've been able to help people on average in 3.5 minutes of your ticket being processed. We have a dispatcher working volunteer who's able to get somebody heading your location. It's kind of like Uber evacuation for livestock, and we've had tremendous success helping almost 20,000 animals at this point get out in Oregon alone.
20,000, what does that feel like to help that many animals?
Honestly, we've been going, and I by no means am doing this by myself. We have 25 different admins on the group that started Tuesday night. Like, this group did not exist on Monday, so Tuesday night we had 25 different groups working, both with the data analysts, with logistics, and then with all the different evacuation help points. We're just now starting to process as animals are getting to go home. Like, had emotional moments today with horses that we didn't think were going to make it here. The fact that they're going home today is pretty impressive, and I'm sure a lot of tears. My eyes will be sweating a lot coming up here shortly.
Yeah, and we're going to show you a lot more of Katie's story and the people that she's been helping tonight at 11. Now her dispatch system is working in reverse. As many of these evacuations are downgraded, you can still file a ticket to come back here and take your animals home. And those same haulers that were helping rescue the animals are going to help you bring your animals back home. And again, that system, once you file that ticket, they have so many helpers on that Facebook page that they can match them in less than 10 minutes. So that is pretty incredible, just to know how many Oregonians have stepped up to help here. And I can't wait to show you the impact that they're having later on tonight.
Oh, Katie, I am so looking forward to that. It's just amazing to see our community step up in so many ways. Thank you so much, Katie. Well, our photojournalist, John Helm, just got back from a tour of the Beachy Creek fire. The sheriff's office and state fire marshal's office took him along Highway 22 to the town of Gates, where so much has burned down. And I got to say, these images are devastating. They're absolutely just heartbreaking to see. These are people's livelihoods. These are businesses. And for many people living outside this area, like Fisherman's Bend Campground, I mean, how many memories do so many of our viewers have of these places? These are haunting images, and it's hard to see, and you have to think about all the people that are behind this. This one, Jean's Meat Market in Mahama. I mean, think about how many times people have stopped there and how many people know the owners. You know, those communities are so tight-knit. This is really a difficult time for so many people in our community, and that's why we need others to step up and help. And now crews on that fire have moved from evacuating people and protecting structures to trying to stop the spread of the fire. That's good news. That means they're making progress, and that's thanks a lot in part to better weather. We learned this afternoon that the city of Scotts Mills was reduced from a level 3 to a level 2 evacuation. So let's go back to Morgan Romero live for us in Marion County. Morgan, what updates do you have to tell us?
Yeah, Brittany, those images you saw, I actually haven't seen them yet. John just got back, and we're allowing some other stations to use the video as well, because only a limited number of people were allowed on the tour due to COVID-19. So he did say, though, it was devastating hearing from the owner of that campground and just driving around a beautiful, beautiful area. I mean, we all cherish this part of Oregon, this part of the country so much. And it had to have been very devastating, weighing really heavy on people's hearts that were able to witness that. So I'll bring you that story with those images and with some, you'll be able to hear from some of those folks tonight on the news at 11. But I want to show you this fire briefing map that I've been looking at throughout the day. So we've been talking about the Beachy Creek and the Riverside fire potentially merging. Officials actually say that those will not merge soon as they initially thought. So here's Beachy Creek here, and here's the Riverside fire up here in Clackamas County. They did create a smoke plume that joined together and kind of created temporarily its own weather system, making fire behavior extremely erratic. But right now, due to the improved weather conditions that Matt touched on, those do not look to be joining anytime soon. So that is really, really good news. They'll continue to monitor that. That is just one of the many issues that they're continuing to monitor out here. They're also, you know, looking at containment lines and control lines. This fire is 190,000 acres nearly and 0% contained, but they are building containment lines. I'll flip the camera around and show you where those containment lines are. The goal today was on this northwest and west side of the fire. Gosh, you can see how big that is when I take a step back. It really is massive. You can see where these red notches are here. These are the containment and control lines. Now, that doesn't mean that the fire is contained. It just means that they're building containment lines, and the goal today was 50% containment lines around the west and northwest sides of the fire. Down here, this is where the fire is extremely active. This is the southern and the southeastern part of the fire. And down here is all wilderness area, very rugged, very steep terrain. And kind of the take here is that if it continues to burn a little bit that way, if they can build indirect containment lines out this way, a little bit further out, then the fire won't jump and it won't get as far as it could potentially get without those containment lines. But down here, they're doing indirect attack. When we talk about defense versus offense, down here, they're doing a little bit more indirect defensive firefighting, whereas up here, they're starting more of that direct offensive firefighting. Now, as I mentioned, crews building containment and control lines, that is the mission today. That will continue to be the mission throughout the next several days as weather improves and as the fire kind of moves into these more agricultural areas. I will say we heard from one of the incident command team members who talked about how incredible it was to see and experience the generosity of Oregonians. He said that people in Marion County, in these rural parts of Oregon, were lending their equipment, they were lending their resources to firefighters to try to fight these fires. And they were basically saying, whatever you need, we're here. They're working with landowners around the southern end of the fire to stop the spread there. And while they did make progress, as I mentioned, they don't expect to tie up all the containment lines until later this week. And today actually did create a bit of a problem because of all the smoke and fog in the air that Matt touched on. That's really difficult for firefighters to have any sort of visibility. And I don't know, how much our viewers know about this, but air resources have been extremely difficult throughout this past week. Honestly, it was probably more than 10 days ago, more than 7 days ago, perhaps, that firefighters even had some air resources down here further south because the visibility is so poor and it is so difficult to get any sort of aerial attacks going and drop any sort of retardant. So that is zero right now. But once visibility clears up and once those conditions clear up, there is the hope that those aerial resources that are standing by would be able to help fight these fires. Today, crews are also getting a scope of the damage in places that burned along Highway 22 and further north. They're working to protect structures and clear trees down in the road. As you can imagine, a lot of burned and fallen trees all along Highway 22, all through the Elkhorn Valley. That incident command team member that I talked about, John Spencer is his name. He came from Washington, and he said in that Elkhorn Valley, there are just so many structures burned and so many downed trees. And he said in fact, as firefighters, a lot of these folks, we've talked about this too, a lot of these folks are from here. They're volunteers, or perhaps it's their full-time job, and they themselves are being evacuated. He told a story, we had it earlier on in Facebook Live, and I'm just going to summarize it quickly. He said when they first got to this, when he first got assigned to this incident and they first got down, they were in Gates. And in Gates, they were doing sort of indirect attack, and they were kind of, trying to assess and do a broader scope of firefighting. And the winds picked up so bad that it actually knocked a tree down and on a power line, and it lit a fire 360 perimeter around their incident command post in the town of Gates. And Brittany, as you mentioned, the town of Gates just decimated. I mean, so many buildings. You're going to see that in my story at 11. So many buildings just burned to the ground. And so, they had to evacuate. They had to get out of there. They went to Staten. And in Staten, they had to evacuate there too because the fire was spreading so quickly. He said a lot of his firefighters, not only the guys that had to evacuate, their families worried about them, a lot of them lost personal belongings in that fire at that incident command post, but their resiliency was incredible. They just kept pushing on. And he told a story about how one firefighter, he goes, I'm okay. I just want to help. These guys are worried about other people's lives and livelihoods. So we should mention too, if there is an evacuation order in your area, whether it's level 1, level 2, level 3, even as they're changing, heed those warnings. Anytime you see a road barricade, do not go past that barricade. You could be endangering your life. You could be endangering first responders' lives. Brittany.
All right, Morgan, thank you so much for that update. A lot of good and important information. And like Morgan said, we're going to be following up with some of those images from what we saw beyond those barriers coming up at 11 o'clock. You can look at more of those images, too, on our social media pages right now and at kgw.com. Well, there has been so much loss this week because of these fires. We are seeing it all around us, but we're also seeing really tremendous acts of generosity. People raising money, people providing shelter for animals, and sometimes it's just been as simple as someone serving up a hot meal. Art Edwards found some of those inspiring stories this weekend in Newburgh and Wilsonville.
Here at Mountain View Middle School in Newburgh, volunteers took over the kitchen. They've been preparing meals for first responders and other people who have been impacted by all the fires. It started out as kind of a smaller effort, but then it started to grow. It's busy in the kitchen at Newburgh's Mountain View Middle School this weekend. Volunteers making meals for people who need them. This started with one restaurant turning to social media and offering meals to first responders and others earlier this week. But the effort took off.
And we just really wanted to make sure people were taken care of, take a little stress off of their plate. And just provide a little support for folks in the time of need.
They have volunteers, kitchen space, a smoker to use. Stores, restaurants, and farms in and around Newburgh all stepped up to help.
All the cooks and farmers and everyone in the community just kind of converged and is making it happen. A lot of talent on both parts, and everyone's cooperating really awesomely.
They're preparing more than 300 meals a day in cooperation with World Central Kitchen, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The meals are boxed up and loaded into trucks and taken to where they're most needed. Not far from here at Frog Pond Farm in Wilsonville, they're doing what they can to help.
It was a very quick pivot of offering refuge for both animals and people that were getting displaced by the fire. We're up to, I believe it's 145 animals that have come here this week, and 6 families that are seeking refuge here as well.
They've taken in mostly llamas, but they're offering shelter to goats, sheep, donkeys, and other animals. For the families staying here, it offers some comfort and peace of mind. Matt Rumgay and his family had to leave their Molalla home on Tuesday. They've been here ever since. Usually, he says he's the one to help people in need.
It's been kind of a humbling experience to be on the receiving side of things.
Rumgay says that so far his house is just fine. As far as the volunteers here cooking meals, they say they're going to keep doing it until there is no more need. Reporting from Newburgh, Art Edwards, KGW News.
That's the kind of hope I needed to hear, Art. Thank you so much. And if you want to help, so many people need our support right now. We've been sharing these stories of people who've lost their homes, and you can help those folks. So donate to our Northwest Response Fund. We'll have a link on kgw.com. There's a QR code. It makes it super easy that you can just go right there. An easy link at kgw.com/Red Cross. We've already raised nearly $1.2 million, and that is amazing. That's from people like you at home that want to make a difference, that want to help our community who needs our support so much right now. So thank you to everyone for your generosity. It is astounding. It's incredible. And it's that hope that I think we all need to keep going. In fact, actually, if you take your phone out right now, turn on your camera, point it at that QR code right there on your screen, and that's going to bring you right to the donation page. We've made it super easy for you. Every little bit helps, and that money goes directly to local support. You can even choose where you want that money to go in Oregon and Washington, helping our friends and neighbors in need. Well, hey, that's going to do it for us right now, but we will be back here at 11, and we will, of course, be continuing to update you all throughout the night on kgw.com, the latest details on evacuations, live fire maps, and more, as well as our social media pages. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here at 11.